Hello everybody, welcome back to How to Build a B-1 Bomber. We got my fuselage flipped upside down the other day, and look what I have done yesterday. I have got my center section all done. I still have to trim my edges and remove my parting planes. I wanted to go over a couple things with you. I bolted it together first, because sometimes when you're jigsawing that thing's just rough or vibrating, them things will tend to separate your two pieces, your two halves, and crud will get in there. And then you end up bolting down your crud, and I just like to bolt them down first. And then I have adapted my jigsaw. I took that plate off the bottom of it. It really worked a lot better. That plate just likes to hang up on every little snag, and it don't like to get in these corners. So I took that plate off, and it works just like a sawzall. This works really good. You can get in there and cut and go around and get in tight places. Really worked pretty good for that. Then anywhere I got both halves made, I'll come in here, bam, and take my sander and round them edges off. You want to get anything that'll poke you, when you're handling these things. Might as well just hit it now. Anywhere where you got some glass sticking up, just kind of hit it and get rid of them little pokey deals so they don't get you. I hate that when I'm grabbing something and get stabbed. And now I'm ready to lay up my ends. And I don't have any parting planes to make. It's going to go fast. What I'll do is I'll take these wood parting planes off, then my fiberglass edge becomes my parting plane. And I already have the ones made for my front. I just have to put these back on there, and bam, I got them for my front. But I wanted to go over with you guys exactly how I did this. There's many ways of doing things, and there's really no wrong way. It's just what works best for you. And this is what has worked best for me. Using clay on this edge and hot glue gun to brace it up and glue it. Anywhere I had to glue, hot glue gun, I put some tape. I didn't know if it would hurt my primer or not. Just didn't want to take the chance in scarring up my plug, so I went in and just put some tape down, and that works pretty good, because you do not want these moving once you start. So how I'm going to go about doing this, first thing you do is you get her all waxed up. I've already got a couple coats of wax on this, but there's going to be none on my parting planes. So I'll wax them up and get them all buffed up looking shiny. Then I'll spray my mold release on here, and that part I'll remember, you just got to go super light coats. You want to spray it on so thin that you can't even hardly tell it's coming out of your gun. You just kind of go over it. If you get the light just right, you can see it coming out, but you just want to go super thin and just kind of build it up really slow. When you go that thin, it dries just almost as fast as you spray it. So you can go over here and spray the whole thing, and by the time you get to the other side, this is pretty much ready to go over again. And you just kind of do it until it just kind of looks wet, but not a heavy runny coat. Never want to do that. And then when it's drying, it all just kind of flows and just flattens out and looks like a sheet of glass. Then you come in here, and we got to do these corners. So what I did, here it is, it's cold, it's winter time. I took my Coleman stove to heat this epoxy up, because it is cold. I get it in 5-gallon buckets, and then we actually transferred it to them smaller buckets, made it easier to work with. But I took my mixing cup, and this is a 3/4 of a liter cup. So I filled it that full with resin, and my resin is a 2-to-1 mix. So that much resin, then up to 3/4 of a liter of hardener. Okay. Then I dumped it all in my cup. I was careful to scrape it all out with a paint stick, and then warm it up. Now calcium carbonate is kind of like flour. It's smooth and it's thin, but there's little lumps. So I took me a flour sifter and sifted into there. Oh, and it just works perfectly. It's just nice, smooth, creamy texture. And you don't want to cook this stuff. You just want to warm it up. So then you just keep on mixing, keep putting flour in. It took about, for my corner bead, I wanted that stuff super thick. So after I got my resin kind of semi-warm, just kind of lukewarm, I mixed in my calcium carbonate, just kind of slow, put some in there, mix it, put some in there, mix it, until I got about 1.5 pints. of calcium carbonate to 3/4 of a liter of resin, and that got it real thick like a paste. And then I heated it up again and kind of kept stirring it. You don't want to leave it on there no 10-15 minutes, just a few minutes at a time, and mix it up real good. Put it back in there until it's just warm. You don't want to get it hot, you just want to get it warm to where it's flowing back out again. And you use your pastry bags, and remember I showed you how to make them, and you just kind of squirt along your edge, and you want to let that set up. You don't have to let it set up all the way, just that just kind of needs to get kind of rubbery to where it don't move when you're putting your surface coat on. And I did the same thing when I was making my surface coat, but I only went about a pint of calcium carbonate to 3/4 of a liter. And you want that pretty thick too, or it'll all just run off your fuselage. So do the same thing. Mix it, just get it warm. You want this full of water, remember, because you don't want to just cook it. You don't want to cook that stuff, you just want to warm it up, or it'll just set off and start a fire in your garage. That's another thing about these. Do not throw these in your trash can, especially if they're half full, until they have set up completely. What I usually do, especially if it's at night and I'm going to bed, I put them on my garage floor to where if they do spontaneously combust, they won't start a fire. I've seen them little cooking bags get hot and start smoking. I've never seen one catch on fire, but I heard it has happened. You need to be careful with any kind of resin. If you leave something half full of resin, put that dude out in your yard, especially if you're going to bed. But anyway, that's what I do for my surface coat. And then I come in and put my surface coat on, and that you want to let set up. You want to let that set up to where you can touch it and it's sticky, but none comes off. And it takes, 3-4 hours. Then put another coat on there. You want a good solid 1/4 inch of surface coat, and that's the best. And so 2 coats of that, and you let that set up same way. You let it get tacky, not all the way set up cured, because the epoxy will end up with kind of an oily finish, a wax, and you don't want that. So when it's tacky, it's good to go. And then you come in here with your 9-ounce cloth. Okay, I put my resin on there first with the paintbrush, just plain old resin. I did the same thing though. I heated it up because that stuff is cold and it's real thick and hard to work with, and it don't soak into the cloth right. But I did the same thing. I actually just used my mixing cups and a brush, and I just got that stuff warm. Then I brushed it on with paintbrush, and put a layer of resin on, or a layer of cloth, and took my spreader, went over it, and got it all nice and smooth. You want to make sure it's all, you have no light spots in your cloth before you go over it with your other coat of cloth. That way you won't have no laminating problems. But just make sure it's all covered, and put it, I use 2 layers in my tooling cloth, and then put a layer of my super heavy stuff. The super heavy stuff is pretty expensive. I've had it for years, but if you don't have that heavy stuff, you got to put 7-8 layers of this. So it's really worth the money to buy this, because it saves you time, it saves you money by the time you buy all this cloth. So there's really about money, even though this is $30-40 a yard, it is still cost you about the same money to use this. So that's what I should like it anyway. And then after I get 2 layers of this on, my light stuff, I'll put my heavy stuff on. And that stuff really soaks up the resin. You kind of go over it and just let it soak up, and it'll just run down the sides and kind of pull up, but that's alright, because it makes them edges nice and tough. That way I get nice tough corners. And I've heard a lot about bracing this up, but I don't believe I'm going to need to. Epoxy don't warp like polyester. I'm just going to let it ride. And that's pretty much it for this week. Today's Friday. By Monday morning I should have my molds finished. I'm going to do these today. Today's Friday. And then I'll have all weekend to do my caps, which they're going to have to be 2 pieces too. So I'll have all weekend to do that, and then Monday I should be ready to start working on my fuselage. So until then, you guys have a nice weekend, and we will see you in the shop.